From tornadoes to hurricanes, blizzards, and everything in between, you're listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. The Stormfront Freaks are former television meteorologist Mark Massaro, atmospheric science graduate and skywarn storm spotter Brady Harris, digital meteorologist and weather producer on the Weather Channel app Dina Knightley, former on-camera meteorologist at the Weather Channel Kim Cunningham, Emmy-winning storm chaser and photographer Chris Sanner, and I'm your announcer and Skywarn Network coordinator Mark Johnson. Now, here's the moderator of the Stormfront Freaks podcast, Skywarn storm spotter and chaser Phil Johnson.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to the most entertaining weather podcast on your listening and viewing device. This is the Stormfront Freaks podcast, of course. But if you're a first-time listener, thanks for stopping by. Be sure to go to stormfrontfreaks.com. Check out our library of previous shows and famous guests from the weather industry. Tonight, this is episode 55. And for the first time, we're finally getting an emergency manager on our show. So we've got Ashley Morris. She's an EM down here in South Central Texas. She is also the podcast co-host with our friends Carolina Weather Group. But we'll be discussing with Ashley the topic of VOST groups. And if you're like me at first, you might have thought, well, what the heck is that? Well, we'll be talking about that. We're also going to cover communicating with the public following hurricanes and other disasters. And then don't forget, stick around for our lightning round, our WX Resources, Weather Fools, and whatever the three of us can also come up with tonight. And I'll talk about that as well. Before we get to that, let's share some news with you. First and foremost, we have come to a decision on our new podcast song. So if you've been listening the last few episodes, we've received entries from Gabe Cox and Brett Epstein. We played those both last episode. We've decided, here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to be using both of those songs starting soon. So Brett's, we're going to use his for the intro, and Gabe's is going to be used for our outro, kind of similar to how we have two different songs currently. We actually have two different tunes if you listen all the way through. We wanted to get all of Gabe's song and his sound effects in the show. So if you actually listen to his song, it sets up better because there's some drinking sound effects at the end as well as the beginning. There's like a cool warning siren. Ashley, you'd appreciate that. There's a warning siren kind of in the middle that's pretty cool. But we wanted to be able to play that at the end, get its entirety there. And then we're going to be using Brett's. It's a banging song that works great as a start off and also works great to allow the voiceover that we'll have at the beginning as well. So you'll be hearing those soon, probably in the next couple episodes. We'll have those all edited and ready to go. So thanks to both Brett and Gabe for helping us out there. Also, check out the latest weather-themed fashions and accessories at helicitydesigns.com. If you're a weather fan and you're listening to us, I'd be shocked that you're not aware of helicitydesigns.com. But while you're there, check out the exclusive line of Stormfront Freaks podcast shirts, hats, and drinking containers. There's more to come, too, along that line. Justin's been great. But here's the key. Listeners, you guys can get a 5% discount on your entire order when you use the code PODCAST, PODCAST. Use that code at checkout. Your entire order is going to be 5% off. You can find that all at helicitydesigns.com. So we're going to go ahead and introduce the team. So many of you are may or may not be familiar with the fact. I'm going to play a little song. You may or may not be familiar. The first three members of the Stormfront Freaks podcast it was me, and then I talked my brother Mark Johnson, MJ, into coming on board.
Yes, you did.
And then we went to Mark Massaro, Maz, and we asked him, because he had a weather background, if he wanted to come on board. So we were the first three, and this is the first show we've had the first three ever on. So I wasn't sure if I should play Three Amigos, if this was maybe the option to play. Or the other thing I was thinking was if you're fans of the movie Hangover.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends.
But regardless, we got the three originals on, and so let's find out what they're drinking. MJ, I'm going to go to you.
Yeah, of course, after all that, I'll sort of disappoint you with the fact that I've just got straight up Coca-Cola in a Stormfront Freaks color changing glass.
No, but you got the glass.
Nice.
Yeah, you got the glass. Yes. So that works. Maz, how about you?
Well, not to be even more disappointing.
Oh, wow. Oh, no. I'm the only one drinking tonight.
But apparently I have chocolate milk upstairs. I have no idea. I literally just ran in, so you're lucky I'm dressed at the moment.
Chocolate milk upstairs. Okay. Yeah. Well, that'll still be there at break. You can head back up.
Wait for Vanna White to bring it down. Vanna.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. So now that you've heard the original three, let's get to our esteemed guest who's wondering what the hell we're doing right now. Maz, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Ashley.
We're always wondering what we're doing too. Yeah. So Ashley, don't worry. Hey, Ashley is an emergency management planner in South Central Texas. Now, she assists with the creation and maintenance of disaster plans, as well as the coordination of city exercises and educational outreach campaigns. Ashley is also a weather liaison for her office. Besides that, this entails weekly or event-oriented weather forecasting, communication with the National Weather Service out of Austin, San Antonio, cool places, by the way, and weather event monitoring. Her first emergency management activation was for Hurricane Harvey this past August. Ashley received her master's in geography with an emphasis in natural hazards from Texas. I didn't even know they had that. And at Texas Tech University in December of 2016. She's also a co-host on the Carolina Weather Group podcast. So welcome, Ashley. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. So master's in geography and emphasis in natural hazards. What is all that? I know the geography side because that's where I went through. But what encompasses natural hazards?
Yeah, so basically natural hazards geography is basically we're looking at maps, we're looking at location, but we want to see where those natural hazards are occurring, and we're tying in technology such as GIS. So I did a lot of GIS mapping, learned the software, and then I was able to do quite a bit of research in disasters because surprisingly our disaster researchers come out of the natural hazards geography side of things. So my thesis that I did was on tornado social vulnerability. So I was trying to figure out characteristics of people and their demographics, how that can actually influence how prepared people are and how they respond and how they recover. Because demographics kind of make up our experiences and who we are. So I kind of used geography to be able to put that on a map. And then I was able to do some surveys and stuff to see how many people had tornado shelters, things like that. So that's kind of one side of what my education was.
Well, yeah. And then the emergency manager. So is that just one aspect of being an EM, or what all does an EM do?
So emergency management is huge. It's a very daunting field, I guess you could say. We're in charge of doing a lot of things. So number one, I always tell people we're responsible for preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation when it comes to disasters, whether it's big storms, but also we have to cover the other things such as man-made disasters. So hazmats, terrorism. So we have to be very open-minded and very educated on a wide variety of topics. Most of our disasters are natural hazards, though, so that's why my background really helps with that. But I mean, being an EM, we're writing plans, we're building relationships, which is the most important thing, because when you have a disaster, there are so many agencies that are involved. And for communication and everything to go flawlessly, you have to have those relationships. And then after that, you're doing exercises, and we're reaching out to the public, and we're working on warning systems and making sure we have the right technologies. So it's like every day I walk in the office and I'm like, man, I've got oodles and oodles of things to do. So it's very.
Is this Ashley? Is this a growing career, job opportunity wise, and everything?
Yes. So that's something really cool about this field too, is that emergency management has been around for a few decades, but it was never really defined as a specific career until 9/11. So after 9/11 kind of happened, and we realized that when you have such a huge incident with that kind of scale, we really need somebody to coordinate all of the responders and all of that. So, like Homeland Security, the department was created, and then we kind of funnel down from there. So interestingly enough, it's been not even 20 years. So it's definitely growing, and we're still trying to define what an EM is, because some EMs come straight from public safety. So a lot of the people, they're a police or a fireman or EMT, EMS. They do that for a while and then come over. But now we're starting to see a change in EM where people are going to college and kind of studying emergency management and the techniques. And then on top of that, even more rare is people kind of going through science stuff. So going to school for meteorology, you're trying to bring the science of the natural disasters into our field. So it's very growing. And I would say, your background can vary greatly right now, which is a great opportunity for weather people.
Yeah, so I know what an EM is. That's electromagnetic. So do you attract a lot of?
Oh yeah, of course.
It is unique though that EMs. There's not a lot of them obviously that have a weather education that I'm familiar with, and I might be off base in assuming that, but the ones that I'm familiar with, that's really, there's not a lot of weather education in their background. So I guess why is that unique, and how have you used that to your advantage?
So kind of like what I was saying, a lot of EMs come out of first response. So they understand kind of how to deal with big disasters or incidences, and they understand the structure, how to kind of handle that and stuff. But a lot of them don't have that weather background. And like I was saying, our field is so new, we're trying to define what kind of background and experience you should have. So there's no set rule on, weather education or anything like that for now, although there are a few select handfuls of us, especially on Twitter when we talk about it, that would like to push for that. Because in my mind, coming from a weather background and being educated in it and all of that, I would not feel comfortable making decisions without having that background. So I think that me understanding the dynamics of weather, the formation of weather, and understanding how it all works helps me feel confident in my decisions and understand what I'm making a decision for. So hopefully that will be something we can push into the field in the next decade.
So what would you say percentage-wise is natural and man-made versus weather when it comes to the disaster side of things?
So could you repeat the question?
Sure. So if you're encompassing natural disasters, weather, man-made, what percentage is weather as opposed to everything else? Sorry, I probably phrased it the wrong way.
I would probably say 70 or 80, 30, 20, because we do have a lot of situations that are spills or even fires, which fires are still kind of natural, but human can cause them. So there's kind of some overlap. But I would definitely say like the majority of the ones that we're going to be responding to are definitely weather. And that's why I think it's number one importance to kind of teach on that too, but then also learn the other stuff, especially too, a big one in our field that's very new is cyber. So we're starting to see a lot of issues with cybersecurity and cyber terrorism and stuff like that. Well, that's really important, especially in government, because we're using all of these technologies and stuff that need to be secure. And that kind of happened a few months ago in Atlanta with them getting hacked and everything. So that's something too that we have to bring back into our preparedness box and learn how to plan and do all that.
So Ashley, how big an area are you responsible for? How does that work in Texas and elsewhere?
So in Texas and pretty much everywhere, there are lots of different levels of emergency managers, just like there's different levels of government. So usually you'll see a city level. If the city is large enough to kind of have that position, you'll have a city. And for a city, which I'm working for a city right now, you're basically in charge of your limits. So all the people that live in your jurisdiction, that's kind of where you live. And then the next step up from that's going to be your county. So the county oversees most of the rural places that aren't in a city, but they also might be in charge of the smaller towns that are really tiny. They don't quite have the funding for a position. And then their job too is they still are really crucial in city EM, because as soon as we become overwhelmed in an incident, we have to reach out to the county and say, hey, like this fire is too big for us to handle. Can you help us? And they'll start kind of coordinating with the other jurisdictions. After county, you go up to state. So I'm lucky living kind of so close to Austin that TDEM, or the Texas Department of Emergency Management is right down the road. So once again, you go up to the county. When the county's overwhelmed, they reach out to the state. The state starts to kind of coordinate. And then if the state is overwhelmed, they reach out to FEMA or the federal. So that's kind of the 4 different tiers of emergency management.
So if you live outside the county and the state's busy, sorry guys, right?
A little bit, maybe. Nah.
So tell us a little bit, what have you faced so far in your shorter career, obviously in that role, but tell us some of the things you faced down in Texas.
Yeah, so severe weather is obviously a big one. Thunderstorms. My jurisdiction has a really big issue with lightning strikes with houses, and then they catch on fire. So there was one time, there was one time we had just a general thunderstorm move through. It wasn't anything special or anything, but there were 7 structure fires from lightning at the same time.
Wow.
And when you start dealing with fire departments and stuff like that, like it's a lot of resources to send out to one structure fire. If you start to have 7, then we started getting a little ramped up because we might have to start borrowing engines from other places, but they were able to kind of get that under control. So lightning, hail, spin up tornadoes. That's a really big deal down here because tornadoes just don't work the same down here like they do up in the plains. They're not really supercell based. They're spin up real quick. Obviously, they're mostly lower end, but I got extremely caught off guard a few weeks ago by just this plain little thunderstorm, and it didn't look good like anything. And nobody really was calling for anything that day. We might have been borderline marginal, and we totally had a spin up EF1 that I think it was on the ground like 25 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and it clipped my jurisdiction and moved north, and it was so small that NWS had a hard time even finding it in the beginning because it was on the ground, I think, about 11 minutes before they put the warning out. So that's really tricky, severe weather down here. Yeah. And then lastly, kind of wrap it up, we live in flash flood alley. So flooding is a huge deal. When we get tropical systems up here, we're concerned about flooding. So that's kind of where the whole Harvey experience came in because I had to kind of monitor for the inland flooding for that.
So tell us about, I'm sorry, Matt. Tell us a little bit about Harvey. What was the impact for you guys and what did you have to step in and do?
So with having the weather background, part of my job is I create weekly impact-based emails. So I look over all the weather data. I see what NWS is saying. I read their AFDs and things like that. I look at my own data, make sure it all makes sense. And then I kind of mold that together to make an impact-based forecast, which doesn't have any jargon. I don't talk about upper, level lows and everything like that because our fire chiefs and the people we're working with don't care about the lingo. They just want to know, is it going to rain, when, how much? Mm-hmm. So I kind of try to mold that for them. So I was already doing that for Harvey at least a week or 2 in advance because we saw it out in the Gulf for a while and it looked like it wanted to kind of swing over the Yucatan and come up. So I was briefing my partners the entire time, and it's my job too to coordinate with NWS and then deliver that message to my partners and the other emergency managers. So I had to do a lot of conference calls for the county and give weather briefings and do all of that. So for my county, we got really lucky because we were on the cusp. We had a dry slot where there was basically rain bands north of us and rain bands south of us and a perfect little dry area right over our county. And if Harvey would have moved up north a little more, we probably would have flooded out like everyone else. But we only got a handful of inches. It was less than 6 for sure. But forecasting that was scary because the models would change and flip-flop, and then the gradient from 4 inches to 15 inches was so close together, and I just didn't know exactly where that gradient was going to line up. So
did you have any flooding at all?
No, we really lucked out. Okay. I mean, we got probably a little bit of street flooding and some river swelling, but for the most part, that break in between bands saved us. And then it was a slower rainfall rate. If we would have got like the 4 or 5 inches really quick, we probably would have had a bigger deal, but it was spread out over the 24 to 36 hours. So as soon as we kind of saw we were going to be okay and we didn't have any existential damage or anything, we kind of shut down. But then we started shipping our resources down south because they were making the requests for that, especially like Houston and everything like that.
So an event like that, how many different departs and jurisdictions and all that do you then work with? Is it just insane? Like you got 17 different departments and you're like, you guys wait over here. And how does that all work?
It is absolutely insane. But what we try to do to better communication between all these departments is we have what we call is our Emergency Operations Center, which is our EOC. So basically, this is like a giant conference room where you have tables, and then you will have one leader or member from an organization at each seat. So I might have a law enforcement liaison, and then I'll have a fire representative, an EMS representative, public works, because we need public works, Red Cross, they're really big, the local school district, because usually we'll use them for shelters. So like at the county I worked at, we had 4 tables, and I think we probably had at least 36 seats. So those could all be filled up. It really just depends on how big your disaster is. If it's huge, obviously you're going to have more impacts and more groups. And then when you start calling in county resources and county help or state or federal, well, you'll have a FEMA person in there, you'll have a state person in there. So depending how bad your disaster is how many departments you have to work with. But
and one of the TVs in the background's on the Texas game the whole time, right?
Oh, of course.
Of course, yeah. I mean, you got to have that in the background. Catch the score every once in a while.
Yeah.
So on those big events, were you there for like days and days, had a cot in the back, or how does that all work?
So yeah, we prepare because we're all about preparedness. We write the plans and we do the drills. So we are prepared in our Emergency Operations Center to be able to do that. We have cots. So if we had an ice storm or something and we weren't allowed or couldn't leave, we have a designated area that people can get sleep. Traditionally, how these things work is you usually do a 12-hour shift. So if we're going to activate the EOC, and that's what we started doing with Harvey, but we didn't activate until I want to say it was 6 a.m. that Saturday because we didn't see any impacts up here until then. So I was going to work a 6 to 6, which I did. And then the next shift would come in and do a 6 to 6. And then you would rotate. And luckily, hopefully, you have enough people to do kind of a 12 on, 24 off. But sometimes there are EMs that don't get sleep for 24 hours, 36 hours, which starts to get a little rough because when you get tired, you're not going to be able to make good decisions.
That's what Pop-Tarts are for.
Yeah. Well, and actually we have go kits. So I have an emergency kit that I can take in there and it has snacks and all of that stuff because I'm supposed to be prepared to be able to be in there. So Pop-Tarts is one of the things that I keep in my bag.
What flavor? What flavor?
Cherry.
Yes. That's why we like you. Yes.
Cherry for the win.
So tell us how'd you get hooked up with the Carolina Weather Group podcast, living in Texas?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I am a huge fan of Twitter and using it to talk about my weather nerdism. So I'm always talking about meteorology stuff, weather stuff, emergency management stuff. And I think I got in a debate with another meteorologist, friendly debate, over social media, because I'm very passionate about the opportunities that we have with social media in my field, but in meteorology too. I think we can really use it to our advantage. So we were talking and it was getting a lot of hits and everything. So Scotty actually reached out to me and was like, hey, like that was an interesting discussion. Like we'd like to have you on as an emergency manager. Because they have done a couple shows with EMs local there, but he was interested in me being an EM down here because I had a little bit of a Harvey experience, and then I just had that weather EM background. So I got to do my own interview on their show, and he was like, hey, you should stick around and be a panelist. So I was like, great, because I never actually ever did a podcast before then. So that's kind of how I got hooked. So I'm the EM rep
now you're
of
pro.
Carolina.
And you were like, yeah, I don't have enough going on my plate. I think I could do that too.
Right.
Do you have like a down week ever in Texas as an EM?
Well, Lately, it's been kind of boring. Like, I'm one of those people, I don't really like the whole dry, hot weather with no clouds. Like, I like storms. That's kind of why I got into the whole weather thing. So I would say the past few weeks have been pretty blah, pretty boring. But the thing is it's not as much downtime as a meteorologist would have, because I can be more relaxed that there's not storms. But on the other side of that, wildfires. So I've been watching for that, because our fuel is getting really dry, and other risks too. So like heat stroke and stuff like that we might see around here might be a big deal, especially in our vulnerable populations. So it's a little bit of a break, but you still can't be caught off guard with some of the risks that you get with that.
Well, good. Well, tell us, Ashley, and tell our listeners, how can they find you and follow you on social media?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm huge on Twitter. So you can just go ahead and find me, Ashley Morris. I think it's at Miss Ashes 92. So MISS and then Ashes, ASHES 92.
What's the 92 for?
The year I was born.
Wow.
Good.
Well, yeah, you know how it is. Like, you can never change your handle, and I made that. I was very, I guess, not so mature yet.
Whatever.
I wish I could have changed it.
Only morons like me are going to ask that question anyway, so it doesn't matter. All right, well, tell you what, hey, it's time for our lightning round. This is our game show of brilliant questions for our guest, and we always invite everybody to play along. Tonight, we are going to play a little family feud with you, Ashley.
Okay.
So I've been told that you have a pet, or you have a what? Or you like pets? What's?
I just got a dog, so I'm surprised that he hasn't made any noise yet. But,
okay.
Good dog.
Yeah,
Good dog.
Very cute. His name is Bandit. So he's been around for 3 months.
Good. Okay. And what kind of dog is it?
What kind of dog is it? It's a weird mix, but he looks very much like a miniature border collie, but he has a weird curved tail, because I actually got him from the pound, so I don't have the paperwork. But
I was going to say, when people repeat your question, what kind of dog is he? They don't know what kind of dog it is.
Right, that's right. All right, so good old family feud. Here's what we're going to do, Ashley. We're going to pit you against our freaks, which is Maz and MJ, our freaks tonight. And MJ, you got to play. So we're two separate families. So here's what we're going to do. It's just on one thing. It's this is from the top10s.com. It's the top 10 best house pets. The top 10 best house pets. So Ashley, I'm going to start with you to pick one, and then I'm going to go to the freaks to pick one. Whoever gets the highest one out of the top 10 can choose to take it in hopes of guessing the other ones to finish it up and win it, or can pass it if they're really unsure if they can figure it out before they get their 3 strikes. All right, so Ashley, I'll start with you. Top 10 best house pets are on the board. What do you think?
Let's go bird, or like a parakeet.
Very good. Birds, that is number 6 on the list. So freaks, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. What do you think?
I'm thinking anaconda.
Is that your answer?
Should it be?
Thanks for choosing MJ. There's no anaconda or even snake on the top 10 list. So Ashley, it goes to you. You can either accept it, take it, and hope you get them all before 3 strikes, or you can pass it to the freaks, and they're going to have to do the same.
Oh, so I'd have to get all of them, right?
Or right, because if you don't and you get 3 strikes, it goes to them, and they just have to pick one that's remaining to win.
No, I'll pass it.
But you heard Maz, so
right, that's true. Well, that's why she's passing, I think. All right, so she is passing. So freaks, you've got still 9 on the board. Birds are gone at number 6. Give me another one. Top 10 best house pets.
Dogs.
Yeah, dogs. Got to be
dogs. Dogs is number 1 on the list.
Nice.
Good job. I don't have no clue why neither one of you guys got dogs when especially the one with the new puppy, Ashley.
Something like that.
I was thinking it was like a trick question. Like,
no, okay.
Yeah, it is. Okay, we would be remiss if we didn't think of Brady and say cats.
Yeah, that's right.
Cats is number 2 on the list. So you got dogs, cats, and birds are off. Very good. Next up.
What do you think, Maz? Rabbits?
Yeah, I might toss it in there.
All right.
Rabbits Rabbits is third.
Right.
So you're
Very
1,
good.
2, 3. You're going right down the list. Good job.
Fish.
Yep.
Fish. Fish is 10. You got number
Ooh.
10, last one on the list. So you still have 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9 on the board. Top 10 best house pets.
Like turtles or something like that?
Turtles. Let's go with turtles.
Turtles is 9. Very good.
All right.
All right.
Turtles over fish? Really?
Yeah, turtles
Okay.
is 9, fish 10.
I guess they
don't
just
know.
sit there, you know.
All right,
people-
so
do
so you
people-
got 4, 5, 7, and 8.
Do people have guinea pigs still? Try
Yeah,
that.
good one.
Guinea pig.
Guinea pigs is number 7.
Good one. Good
You're
one.
ripping them off here.
Yeah, I'm running
No
out
strikes
now.
yet. 4, 5, and 8 on the board.
Spiders.
No, no spiders. First
Yeah.
strike.
I step on them anyway.
That'd be a bad house pet.
So snakes wasn't there. How about
No.
How about lizards?
Lizards, number 5 on the list.
Ooh.
Very good. So you're down to 4 and 8
4 and 8. What's number 4?
with 1 strike.
Did we do? Oh, is iguana a lizard? It is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think so.
All right.
Crocodile.
Oh, wow.
I don't know.
Clock is ticking.
Yeah, we're gonna. What's number 4?
All right, that's your
Oh,
second
number
strike.
2.
You got one more. 4 and 8 are still open.
Hamster.
Oh, good one.
Hamster's number 4. You're down to number 8 left on the board.
Oh boy.
Oh, potbelly pig.
There you go.
That is the third strike. It is not it. So, Ashley, it goes back to you. If
Finally,
you can
Ashley
guess what number 8 is, you get all the points. If not, it's going to go back to the freaks. What's number 8? What are we
The
missing?
only thing I can think of was like a ferret.
That is it. It was number 8 was ferret. You got it. That's amazing.
She was Googling.
No.
All right, so that was good. You got dogs, cats, rabbits, hamsters, lizards, birds, guinea pigs, ferrets, turtles, and fish. Very impressive, but Ashley, way to pull it out at the end. That was impressive.
Yeah, I was kind of sweating it. They were on a roll.
That was very. I was sweating it too after the way they were going. That was not bad at all. So anyway, great job, Ashley. Thanks for playing along. Maz, I'm going to ask you this: What are you doing Saturday, October 27th?
Carving pumpkins, I'm guessing.
Okay, well that's one thing you can do.
Is
I
this
would
like another
recommend
top 10?
no. I would recommend you make plans now to attend the first Mid-Atlantic ChaserCon at the Science Museum of Virginia in Richmond. Storm chasers and weather freaks like us will love the lineup of speakers that includes former guests on our show. Catherine Prosiv and Ian Livingston are a couple of the guests that will actually be speaking there, as well as local TV meteorologists and legendary storm chasers. And Mid-Atlantic, Ashley, some of your Carolina weather guys might be dropping in as well. So visit midatlanticchasercon.com. I know that's a mouthful, but midatlanticchasercon, one word.com. You can get more details there. You can register there. It's only $25. They're not allowing walk-ups, so make sure you hurry and register before they sell out. All right, we're going to take a short break. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you get to hear the Titan U Minute with Chris Sanner. Stay right here. We'll be back with Ashley and the guys to talk about hurricane and disaster communication and what the heck are VOST groups. All right, well, hey, welcome back, everybody. One of the biggest challenges, I think, faced in the event of a disaster is communicating recovery efforts to the public that's affected, whether it's rescue, locating family, pet care, closed zones. I'm sure insurance claims are in there, traffic issues, getting this important information to the emergency personnel and the public affected is always a coordinated effort. So one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit is to find out what are some of the methods that have been used in the past to try and communicate following, whether it's a big hurricane or something of that nature. What are some of the methods used and where are we going and how are we getting better, especially getting into eventually talking with Ashley about VOST groups. But Maz, I'm going to start with you and your background.
Because I'm old. We're
Yes,
going to go back in time, right?
That's usually how
to
it
be
works.
honest, yeah.
We're pull a little Huey Lewis. We're going back in time. And we're going to find out. I want to know television in your role as a television meteorologist, what were some of the things? Did you guys ever discuss that, like following any kind of disaster or weather issue, flooding, tornadoes, stuff like that? How were you involved in getting the word out to the public, especially knowing if there could be maybe power outages going on in the area and they couldn't see TV? How was that involved?
Well, at that point in time, because it was always the media, the TV and radio, but mainly TV in the beginning. They were on high alert. It was wall to wall, 24/7. I don't even think back in the day when we had sign off times, they were staying on, just because like after a big tornado with the cleanup, they're constantly updating what's happening. And then part of your group, your audience, is without power, so you don't know really who is hearing you or seeing you and who isn't. So was
that word getting to you at all about like what areas had power, didn't have power? Like, was that any of the information you guys had?
Yeah, it would trickle in because the news department would always contact, up here it's Duke Energy, but wherever in whatever city you're in, the local power district, they would always have somebody, a department at the power district that would be the liaison for the media. And so they would, do their best as people call in and they figure out where stuff is. And at the bottom, we'd have like, 220,000 people without power, 300,000, 350,000, whatever it was, it kept going up. And then you don't get the full ramifications until you realize 3 days later, you're still doing this. People are without power, which means no refrigeration, people with medications that need to be refrigerated, people who need electricity.
Right.
Now you start getting all the ancillary problems. So the news crews were just on high alert. And of course, the power districts were constantly pulling people in from all over the country, trying to get, back up on the grid as fast as possible.
Were you remotely, was the TV station remotely then starting to send people to the locations affected?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well? Yeah. And in the beginning, initially, when the severe weather or whatever was going on, you're on the air in the studio with the reporters out there. But as the next day wears on, they would start to send the weather people out to see if they can kind of, without stepping on the weather service's toes, get a feel for, was this an EF3, F4? What do we think it was? And a lot of times we're very careful about what to say. We always wanted to coordinate with the weather service. And I will tell you, most TV stations have a great rapport with the weather service and vice versa. There can always be a rogue station who decides to go out on their own. They're like, oh, look what they're saying, But it was really just, anything you could think of. You're dealing with the airports. You're just pet shelters. I remember when I was in Florida one time for Hurricane Floyd, it was wall-to-wall coverage. And we were talking about, what do you do with your horses? And it was one of those things where I'm like, we don't have a lot of horses in Cincinnati. That's more down towards Lexington. So it was a very big learning experience for all the things in those areas that they would deal with that we don't normally deal with where we were. And so we were actually called down. We were the sister station of WPBF in West Palm, and they would pull people from up here to come down and help them out.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Maz, did the emergency personnel seek you out to get information out, or did you have to go to them?
I think it was always coordinated through the news department. And so they would have usually like the assistant news director would be the one who is the big branching out individual. And so then they would come to us and ask our opinion. But there's always a person in the newsroom that was the liaison for everybody. And because you had to have a chief, just like Ashley being an EM, she had to be the chief there making the decisions on who's going to do what and all of that. I'm kind of curious because I'm trying to remember, when did EMs first start? Yeah, I don't remember that.
So like I said, there was technically some EM positions in the 60s with or the 60s, 70s, 80s with Cold War and the whole, that's where sirens started, right? Mm-hmm. It was air threats. So there were people who were kind of coordinating that, but it really didn't become a big thing until after 2001 with the whole September 11th thing. So after then, we've really grown a lot because, like I said, that's when Homeland Security was kind of developed, and we've just started being more prepared and proactive to try to stop things than just reactive, because our first responders are more reactive, right? They run to the crime or they run to the threat. So then we started kind of going the other way and then teaching them to do that too. And so we have prevention and preparedness programs now. So
it's crazy too, by the way, when that's all going on. I can only imagine what it's like, Ashley, in your office with everybody there, because I knew what it was like in the TV stations. There's literally people like running down the hallways, and someone slips and papers go flying, and they're trying. That's just the way it was.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said earlier, it's the biggest challenge is coordinating all the people and communication, and then making sure that you're getting the right message out to people. So we actually have procedures and stuff to try to help the media, because the media is a huge player in getting our information out. So we have a PIO, which is a public information officer, usually for the city, that will also be in the EOC. And their job is to say, okay, what do you want me to tell the media? Like, what do you want me to release to the public? What should we release now? And what should we maybe hold on to? So usually we'll tell them, and then they formulate like a pretty little, like either a presser, or they actually do the interview. And then they send that to the media. And usually we'll have like press releases and those pressers where the media can go and listen.
But those are pretty. You said those are pretty.
Well,
like that's an official term.
I say they're pretty because they're very good at formulating that message. Like we might kind of stumble around with what's going on, but their statements are always perfect. So
Ashley, what's something you guys might not or might hold back for a little bit?
Something to kind of hold on might be if we're just not certain of things. So we obviously don't want any sensitive information to get out. Maybe that might be names of victims, or that might be victim numbers. We don't want to misinform the public. So if we're starting to get word of something, maybe fatality numbers or stuff like that, we're going to hold on to that direct number until we can confirm. And you kind of see that a lot with a lot of these really big incidences, is sometimes numbers get out and it's not really accurate. So we just want the public to trust what we're saying. So we would rather kind of hold back on some of the stuff until we're certain to release that, than release it and then it'd be completely false.
So it wouldn't be something like, so should we tell them it was a Sharknado, or what should...
No, I think that we would definitely say Sharknado.
So Ashley, what have been some of the most effective means of communication, whether it's to the emergency personnel or whether it's just to the general public? What's been effective, and what are some of the methods that haven't been so effective, in your opinion?
So with communications, it's very complicated. And if you sit in an AAR, or that's also known as an after action review.
God, you got all these acronyms.
Yes,
Holy cow.
yes.
I'm trying to take notes.
I'm very impressed.
Too many acronyms. But if you sit in an AAR after an event, because that's what we do, we work an event or an incident, we get in a room afterwards a couple weeks later, and we say, okay, like what went wrong? What went right? What are some things we need to change? Like maybe our emergency plan had some holes in it and we thought that it was going to go different. So it's kind of like our assessment period, but every single AAR from every single incident will always tell you communication is an issue. It doesn't really matter what kind of new technology we have. I think it's just kind of the challenge of, like I said, you have so many organizations and so many people, and you're dealing with a very stressful, high impact event. It's just going to be very challenging to communicate. So we have a lot of technology and options for that, but a lot of them fail sometimes, or there's still just gaps in that. For first responders, it's always going to be their handheld radio. So we have those radios that they use every day for their other calls, but we try to make them to where they're interoperable. So if the county has a radio and the city has a radio and they're both out there, we want them to be able to hear each other. Because that was a huge deal with September 11th too, is there was issues between agencies, especially like police and fire. They couldn't hear each other. They couldn't get the channels right. And when you can't coordinate, then it's very dangerous for people who are out there. There were a lot of firefighters at 9/11 that didn't get the message to leave the building, and they had a lot of fatalities because of that. So radios are our go-to for that, and we try our best, but in every incident, there's always a little bit of holes with that.
Ashley, did you have a statewide initiative, or is it already implemented in Texas for interoperability of those kinds of communication?
So I'm still kind of new in the whole EM thing, so I'm not exactly certain of the exact conduct rule or anything, but I know that is something that we hammer home a lot, and we work really closely with like Motorola and the different companies that are doing those things to test them and make sure that they're all working. And another big thing about that too is just doing exercises. So those are like big fancy drills where we pretend that something's happening and we're on our radios and we're coordinating it to test our plan and everything. So it's important that we do that kind of thing too, to see how our radios are going to do. But even then, I mean, if we lose transmitters and stuff, it gets really tough. And we do prepare for that. And we have a great county communications department who they can go out there and put it up, and they have mobile platforms. And then on top of that, we have a great team of volunteers that are ham radio people. So they're in the ARIES or the RACES program. So we actually have a spot in the EOC for them too. So if all else fails, we have ham radio.
So tell us. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, MJ.
No, I was just going to say I was going to ask you about that too, if that still plays a role in your communication plan or not, because we've had a couple of people with amateur radio background on before asking, and talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, they still play a huge role in being active spotters. So a lot of them will activate during severe weather, go out, and they'll get those reports, because a couple of nights ago, we had another one of those rogue storms come through on a borderline marginal day that nobody really thought anything would happen. And I was able to get, I think, a fence blew down, and it was their report. So we're very thankful that they have a passion and the ability to do that. And I got halfway done with it, but I'm trying to get my introduction, I don't know what it's really called, license, I guess.
Technician license, go for it.
Yeah. So I got halfway through it, but I got kind of caught up last summer. I couldn't actually test out, but I'm hoping this year I'll be able to get that, because I just think that it's really important that we understand how it works and how to use it if we need to have it.
MJ, you should hold her accountable just to make sure she gets that done.
Yeah, we'll do that.
All right.
So then let's do this, Ashley. Let's jump to VOST groups, VOST. One of the reasons we wanted to have you on was talk a little bit about this. But what is a VOST group, and why is this something that's really starting to be popular?
Yeah, so VOST actually stands for the Virtual Operations Support Team. And I guess apparently it was actually an emergency management idea. So somebody got in a room and came up with this idea that we can make a team of people to actually use social media to data mine or search through tweets and posts for damage reports, because we know human nature. If you get golf ball size hail and it's pelting your windows and it breaks through and it's all over your floor, they're going to take a picture and put it on Twitter, right? They're not going to call the weather service. So this idea has really kind of molded into this great team community aspect that the weather service actually picked up. And I heard about it in school because our local weather service office in Lubbock wanted to make a team. And so our job was to be trained on spotting and understanding basically what radar depictions look like, what clouds look like, how to be able to tell scud from tornadoes. So understanding all that. And then during severe weather, we would actually data mine. So you can actually go into Twitter and you can put GPS points, because people have location tagged to their tweet. You can put the GPS, and then you can also look for posts that say tornado or damage, and you can search through everybody. And basically it will mine out all the data within the GPS point, within the range, with people who are talking about tornado or damage or hail or whatever. So our job was to search through those, find the good ones, make sure that they were vetted and actually accurate and they weren't, photoshopped or something. And then the team lead of the team would confirm it. They had an NWS chat account, and they would actually send that to NWS. So it helped them with their warnings. So if they saw, oh, look, severe hail, we don't have a warning out yet, we just got this photo, we can warn it. Or it helps their verification process, because they still have to get those verifications for their warnings. So I kind of learned about VOST through them, but then I realized as an emergency manager how important it is to have that as kind of like your eyes on the ground of what's going on. So I've used it for other kind of incidences too, just to monitor what's going on.
So what's part of the verification process? So when you say someone's responsible for looking through all this, verifying it's accurate, legit, all that kind of stuff, what's that process, and how does that sometimes delay getting that information out?
So like I said, all team members will sit through a training, usually taught by NWS, just going through, this is what a good reputable report and picture looks like. This is not a good report. And then there's actually a lot of really cool resources online called like TinEye or Google Images or reverse images or something, where you can actually put those pictures in and it'll show you like, hey, this is a repost. Because we all know, like, there are those tornadoes that go around and it's like, oh, look, this tornado.
It's like a storm spotter class, only it's like a weather fool spotter class or something. How to spot the morons that are putting bad crap online.
Ashley, I was going to say, are you guys using any AI in that process, or is it just the regular programming? I mean, do you foresee in the future that being a job being kind of farmed out to AI, or?
I definitely could, because I actually worked with a professor in my department who he did that. He would data mine tweets based on code and then would do research on them. I think one was the movement of flu. So he took all the tweets with people saying, I'm sick with the flu, and then was able to take the date and everything and then put that in GIS, and it would actually show how it spread like throughout the country.
Oh, that's cool.
So I think that it definitely could be AI in the future. And I also think that there are companies that are charging now. So you can actually contract with someone who will work for you and do it for you. But I really think that being able to see it yourself helps with your decision-making and everything else, and verification.
So I got to ask you a question about this, and maybe it goes in with what we're talking about at the moment, but it was actually from before. And maybe you can, and maybe you shouldn't answer this question. I don't know. But if it came to like a major hurricane or a major cyber attack, which do you guys kind of fear more? And again, if you're like, yeah, I don't really want to answer that, that's okay.
Well, I mean, I could just answer from probably a general emergency management perspective. I actually just saw an article on Twitter, and I don't remember who posted it or anything, but people in general actually fear natural disasters more than terrorism or cyber attacks or anything combined. So I don't know if that's kind of exposure, or like we kind of talked earlier, it's just it happens more often. For us, I guess I would be concerned about cyber because we haven't seen it often. So we're planning for it, and we work with resources from FBI and stuff, obviously, but because technology is so new, and then we have a lot of people too, it kind of varies how technologically savvy your EM is. It would be kind of tough, I would think, because even I don't really feel like 100% confident with trying to do planning for that as compared to like tornadoes. Because I understand storms, but coding and stuff gets tricky.
Yeah, but you know what Snapchat is, right?
Yeah.
So last question, what do you see as the future of VOST and how that can be used?
So VOST is just so great because, like I said, if you train your community, it gives your community opportunity to give back, and they're always wanting to do that. So you can get involved with your community and they can actually help you, and it's a free option for you to get intel. So personally, like, I would like to make a county team. So when I have an incident going on, I can have a representative in my EOC. They're pulling up reports. I'm seeing, okay, it is flooding there, or we do have a huge crash over there. And I can make my decisions faster based on this intel, because it's harder to wait and sit back for people to call dispatch or call the weather service, because people don't do that anymore. They kind of just go straight to social media. So
Right.
I think that there's so much growth, and I can't wait to see what we can do in Texas, because it's not too utilized here yet. It's kind of more on the coasts. So.
Okay. Well, we always ask our listeners what they think of the subject, so go ahead and let us know. Email us at questions@stormfrontfreaks.com, or find us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and tag us your thoughts so we can share that on the next show. We're going to go ahead and take our final break. You can refill your drink, and when we come back, it's time to share some WX resources and find out how you can prevent weather fools. All right, well, hey, I think that just about does it for this episode of Stormfront Freaks Podcast. Thanks for listening and watching. Before I share the reveal of our next guest, if you enjoy our show, please do us a favor, leave us a great review on your podcast app, and don't forget to subscribe to the show. All you got to do is just hit that little podcast app subscribe button that probably pops up on your phone. This works just like a magazine or a newspaper subscription. It just assures the latest show is going to get delivered right to your podcast inbox the moment we release it. So you'll be the first to get it. I want special thanks to our guest tonight, Ashley. Thanks so much, Ashley.
Very nice.
Thank you for having me.
For coming on. We definitely appreciate it. And our next episode in 2 weeks, we'll be recording on June 28th with Brantley Hargrove. He's the author of the book, The Man Who Caught the Storm, The Life of Legendary Tornado Chaser Tim Samaras. So we'll give him the Stormfront Freaks treatment because he has been on, I have listened, he's been on a couple weather podcasts, but he hasn't been on Stormfront Freaks yet.
That's right.
There we go.
So we'll give him the Freaks treatment. If you'd like to watch the recording live, it's at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 Central on that Thursday. Just check out our YouTube channel by searching Stormfront Freaks.
What is the Freaks treatment? Do we know?
If you don't know by now on the 55th episode,
all right,
you're still gonna be struggling to find that. But all right, so for MJ and for Maz and for Ashley, I'm gonna go ahead and signal the all clear, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Adios.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. To subscribe and be notified when new episodes of our bi-weekly show are available, you can go to Apple Podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, or your favorite podcast app and search for Stormfront Freaks. If you would like to contact us with questions or make comments about the show, shoot us an email to questions@stormfrontfreaks.com or follow us on Twitter @StormfrontFreak. We'd love to hear from you. For show notes, additional information about this episode, as well as past and upcoming shows, videos, photos, and more, visit our website at stormfrontfreaks.com. While you're there, check out the interactive radar provided by our friends at zoomradar.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/stormfrontfreaks. Join us next time and tell a friend about the Stormfront Freaks podcast. That's a great look.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something wrong about that. Sorry.
Don't do that. Yeah, don't do that.
So that's not what I was. Yeah. I was trying to, sorry.